It's Chris Andersen. It's two players at 6-0, and oddly enough, it's a rematch from our Season 1 Invitational semifinal, where Duke was actually the one to knock Andersen out of the tournament before he lost in the finals to Jacob Wilson. So maybe revenge on the mind here for Chris, but it's certainly an important match for him nonetheless. He's got to get by one heck of an opponent here in Reid. A Taiga off of fetch land is where Chris is going to start. He's down to 19, and we'll see what kind of explosive opening he does have. Exploration. A Grove. Maybe even a Gamble. Oh, just another exploration. Third land here for Chris. Yep. It's Thespian stage. Unsure if Chris has something like a Life from the Loam just yet. For Reid, it's a Plains and a Sensei's Divining Top. Back over to Andersen we're going to go.
Well, the last card in his opening hand was a Punishing Fire. So this is a hand with not a whole lot to do, but if it finds Loam or Gamble to find Loam, becomes very explosive on the back of multiple copies of Exploration.
Reid will spend top on the upkeep. Chris, no interest in porting just yet.
Reid is just going to Divining Top with it anyway, and Reid may use the Plains to top on the upkeep, so you might as well wait on the port.
Yeah.
This way, if you play something like Flooded Strand or some other fetch land, you can tap it, maybe draw a Wasteland or something. Who knows? But no real value in porting.
Chris is going to stage his Rishadan port. Pass the turn back. Wasteland the draw here for Chris. He will deploy that. Now just pass the turn back. Reid will sacrifice that Scalding Tarn, fall back down to 20. And he'll search up a basic island. One of my favorite things about Legacy, for how many lands you can play, between dual lands, Ravnica Shock lands, and whatever else, basics are really important in the format.
Yes, format with Wasteland, Blood Moon, really, really important to have access to basic lands. Wasteland's just the top of the list.
Yeah.
That's the major driver.
Couple of port activations here. Gonna lock up Reid's lands. Scalding Tarn the draw here for Duke. He'll play a Flooded Strand, pass the turn back over to Andersen. Andersen will draw. I believe he has found Life from the Loam.
That's the starter. Now things get good here for Andersen.
Here's Loam. Gonna target Verdant Catacombs. That'll resolve. There is the Verdant Catacombs. He'll sacrifice that very quickly. Time to search up a land.
And even though Andersen's hand really was a dead end in terms of the opening 7, it was set up very well to buy himself time, and if he found Loam, could start doing some really powerful stuff. And he's been boarding Reid now for a couple turns. Reid doesn't have a whole lot going on. That's given Andersen time to find Loam ahead of the lock or Jace entering the battlefield, and now things are looking pretty solid.
Back over to Reid. On the upkeep, Reid's going to use the Plains to spin the top. And now here's a port. Going to go after the island. That'll work. And now Chris, I think, might try to go after the fetch land, too. And Reid, he might sacrifice that. Yeah, he will. Get a basic island. So the porting and the choking of land, it's working so far so good for Chris.
It's given Andersen the breathing space to get some land drops and an opportunity to draw either Loam or Gamble, which he's now found, and now it's a race between Reid being able to establish some sort of lock versus Andersen continuing to bully Reid's mana.
Reid will spin the top in the upkeep with that island. Now he'll draw a card. Looks like he picked up a copy of Flooded Strand. He'll play that, pass the turn back over to Andersen. Andersen will quickly untap. He'll dredge Life from the Loam. 3 cards come in. Maze of Ith is 1. Wasteland is 2. Glacial Chasm is 3.
Nothing I would describe as a big hit over there,
no.
But still fine. Just get the ball rolling a little bit.
What he's really looking for is Tranquil Thicket.
Tranquil Thicket would be great, and more copies of Rashad Port or Thespian Stage.
Couple of lands here for Chris. Maze of Ith, Wasteland, Verdant Catacombs. He'll sacrifice Verdant Catacombs right now. See what land he wants to search up. Remember, he's been holding Punishing Fire in his hand basically the entire game. Hasn't even revealed it yet.
Yep.
Which I actually like. There's not really much of a reason that I think go about throwing that card around. And if Reid's not playing around or anything, you can just take care of a Jace.
Yeah, you might be able to get a Jace or a Vendilion Click or something like that for your trouble if you don't show it.
Back over to Reid. Upkeep, Chris is going to use Rashad and Port. Looks like he's going to start with the fetch land. Reid will search up a basic plains. Those are Ice Age, yes?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. I know the island's Ice Age.
Probably opened up in a starter deck by Reid or a family member about 20 years ago, I would guess.
All right, we draw. Brainstorm the draw here. Looks like in the draw step, there will be a Port activation. Looks like Reid's going to use that to brainstorm. So 3 cards coming, 2 will be going back for Duke. A lot of options here for Reid in his hand. Jace is something that all Miracles players like to work towards against lands. Counterbalance as well. We saw that in the earlier match between Andersen and Rudy Briska.
Except Reid now has an opportunity to set up counterbalance with Sensei's Divine Top, which was something that Briska was lacking in the previous match. And if Reid can float a 2, it's hard for Andersen to get a whole lot going.
Sacrifice Scalding Tarn here, will Duke. You see him aggressively searching up basics too. No surprise when you're playing against a deck that has access to this many wastelands.
Yep. Reid's the list with a full 9 basic lands in it.
It's quite a few. Here's Jace. And again, this is why I actually like Chris concealing that Punishing Fire.
Yep. And Reid respects the possibility of Punishing Fire enough to immediately move Jace to 5.
Top card going to go to the bottom, pass the turn back. Crystal Punishing Fire. Jace down to 3. Quickly going to untap. I think we'll see a Dredge of Loam here in just a second. And we do. Tranquil Thicket, Dark Depths, Grove of the Burn Willows. That's a nice 3.
Those are 3 huge hits there. You now Tranquil Thicket to pair with the Life from Loam. That's great news. Dark Depths threatens the kill with Thespian Sage. And second Grove gives you more utility with the Punishing Fire. So 3 great hits there for Chris.
Now he's got to figure out how to sequence. Is the priority kill Jace? Can you kill Jace this turn?
Another option here for Chris is simply try to pin down Reid's mana and go for the kill. He's got several good routes here.
2 lands have been played. Grove and Dark Depths. Tranquil Thicket still in the grip. Got to return Punishing Fire. Reid will get a life. Fire off Punishing Fire at Jace. Return Punishing Fire. Reid will get another life. So you can see what the plan is. The plan is try to kill Jace. Does it work?
And what's nice about Andersen finding this suite of cards is even in the event that Reid is able to establish the lock with counterbalance, Andersen's still threatening a kill here with the ability to attack Reid's white mana and then make a Merit Lage token. Before this, he was vulnerable to getting locked out. Now he's at least got a second angle of attack.
Reid will spin that top. You see counterbalance in his hand. He just hasn't had the opportunity to deploy it just yet.
Well, he also wants to deploy it in a spot where he's got a 2 floating. It's not worth a whole lot to Reid until he's in a position to lock out Loam and Punishing Fire.
And those cards are set in a way that he likes it. Brainstorm the draw. You see Reid does have a Source of Plowshares in hand. That's not going to surprise you too much.
Just looked at a lot of cards.
Yep. Here's Brainstorm. Draw 3-2 will be going back. See, Counterspell among those cards. That's a 2 to put back with Counterbalance. But Reid's really got to figure out how he wants to sequence the cards that he's going to put back. You see Chris kind of reorganizing his lands.
On top of that, Reid needs to make sure that he can play the game in such a way that a bunch of Rashad ports going after his white mana doesn't allow him to get killed by Merit Lage, which is going to be tricky here. Reid with only 3 planes in the list.
There's Jace again. What's interesting about this Jace could be a decoy. Chris paid so much attention to Jace in the last turn. Reid might just say, you know, if you spend your turn kind of doing this, that's fine with me.
Yep.
Time to dredge. Exploration, Tabernacle, Gamble. This dredge not as good as the last one.
No. Though the thing is that it's not like what is Andersen's turn really worth? It's just if he uses all of his mana getting rid of Jace and gets to Loam for his trouble and keep the engine rolling, Andersen's fine with that being a use of his turn at this stage. Andersen's turn does not have a lot of value other than punishing Reid's lands and threatening a kill with Merit Lage.
Thicket and Loam in hand. Again, the tough part is just how to sequence all of this.
Yeah.
He's going to start by cycling and drawing.
Well, if he's going to cast Loam anyway,
I guess that's true. That's true. Never mind.
might as well get it in the graveyard.
You're right. Grove was the land for the turn. Chris with a decent amount of mana to work with. Dark Depths plus Thespian Stage on the battlefield. Just unclear when he wants to actually make his move for that.
He's got the resources available to, I believe he has the resources available here to Punishing Fire 3 times. He may be short on red mana now looking at it. Because you got the 3 Groves, and I think he's short beyond that.
Main phase 2020. Interesting.
So he's throwing this into the Maw of Jace.
Yep.
If Duke goes ahead and uses Jace to minus, that means 2 Punishing Fires takes care of Jace.
Yep.
And Andersen can just set this back up the next turn, and the turn after that, and the turn after that. And we saw Andersen take this line of play against Briscoe too. Not exactly like this, but the same philosophy of, I'm just going to keep doing this once I have explorations in play, and you can only answer this so many times.
Oh, there's Stage plus Depths again.
Very rare to see the main phase Merit Lage into the face of Jace.
In the face of Chase, yeah.
But with 2 explorations in play in Loam, Andersen can present this turn after turn. And even a -1 on Jace, well, that's 1 less Brainstorm for Duke, and also means that it's easier to finish off Jace with the Punishing Fires.
It's an interesting play.
Not intuitive.
Now we're on Reid's turn. And Reid might be thinking, all right, what's going on here? He's going to start by spinning top. Swords in there. Looks like a Supreme Verdict is in there.
Yeah, I assume at this point Reid wants to draw Source of Plowshares and leave Counterspell on top of the deck as a 2 to present if he's able to get counterbalance to stick, which he can.
There's counterbalance. Will Chris move in response to this?
Well, if you're going to cast something anyway, you might as well cast it now. For counterbalance, it's the table.
This is the one spot that Rudy couldn't get to against Chris earlier.
He was not able to establish counterbalance alongside Sensei's Divine Top. He got counterbalance in some spots with Brainstorm and Jace, but he never had a combo this firm.
Reid will gain a life from the Grove. Chris going to return Punishing Fire. We're going to see him cast Punishing Fire, I believe. With counterbalance on the stack. Jace down to 3. Jace down to 2. What's next here for Chris? Gonna tap Flooded Strand. And Reid says that's fine. I have no interest in sacrificing because I want this 2 on top of my deck. So back to Chris. Grove of the Burn Willows. I think Chris knows he's in some trouble now, though.
Now, the door's starting to shut. I mean, these are the 3 permanents you see in play here for Duke. Andersen needs to have something spectacular going on to power through this, assuming there's a 2-cost card on top of the deck. He was able to beat 2 of the 3 cards several times in his match against Rudy, but beating all 3 of them when Reid has a Merit Lage covered with Swords of Plowshares, it might be too much.
And there's Loam. He'll have to announce his targets. There's there's counterspell on top for counterbalance.
And now Andersen may just have to go simply make a Merit Lage, hope it's good.
Yep.
Because he doesn't really have another route from here.
4th Grove is down. Pass the turn back. Reid's going to spin his top. Take a look at the top 3. Chris says I might have a response to the activation.
The problem, and another difference between Jace and Sensei Divine Top in this spot, we got into spots where Rudy had it too, but he had to either choose to draw it or put it on top of the deck, and there were windows in the draw step for Andersen to land Punishing Fires. Reid can simply put the 2-cost card 2 cards down. Andersen ever tries to make a move, Duke rather simply reactivates the Divining Top, gets the 2 back on top. There's no way to jam him up here.
Chris is going to tap the plains with Port. And I think just going to pass back now. Maybe made a mistake.
Well, I think what he was hoping to do was get it to a spot where Reid would have presumably put the 2 in the middle of the 3 cards because he was planning on drawing something else and leaving the 2 on top. At that point, maybe Andersen could finagle his ports in such a way to get back Punishing Fire and take care of Jace. But it looks like whatever calculus Andersen had worked out there didn't quite add up. But that's the route that Andersen has to maybe get out from under this. The problem now...
It's a big maybe.
The problem now is exactly what you see here. Duke is able to start plussing the Jace, and that means that Andersen cobbling together enough Punishing Fires in one spot to power through the 2 is just going to be really challenging.
Now, one thing that we saw when Chris played against Rudy, game 2, when Jace was up to 11, Rudy just played a Monastery Mentor. Chris just conceded.
Yep.
knowing that he couldn't come back. And I feel like the grasp that Reid has on this game is pretty tight.
Yep.
And he might just wave the white flag. He's just gonna, I think he's not gonna wave the flag just yet. He's gonna make it 2020. But once this gets sorted, yeah, he's just gonna wave the white flag right here and just get out of here because he can't come back now.
Yeah, that lock, game 1 at least, is something that Andersen can't get out from under.
Yeah. So Reid Duke's going to win game number 1 here over Chris Andersen. Miracles up a game here over Lands. You see we're underneath 30 minutes here. I think we're going to see some quick sideboarding, especially on Chris's side. So we'll take a look here for each player and what they are working with. And for Andersen, he's got that Molten Vortex. The big one here is 4 copies of Crows and Grip. 4 Sphere Resistance, a Bajuka Baga, Caracas, 2 Chalice of the Void, a Boil, and a Boseiju who shelters all.
So we saw, again, Andersen play this matchup a couple rounds ago. The 4 copies of Crozan Grip definitely coming in. We saw him bring in the 2 copies of Chalice of the Void. I think that Molten Vortex is maybe a fringe card for this matchup. Probably doesn't come in, but it's a possibility. I think the 1 copy of Boil is fine.
That's okay.
I'd bring it in.
Well, you can't say no.
Can't say no.
Other side of things here for Reid, a Mountain of Pyroblast, 2 Red Elemental Blast, a Hydro Blast, Spell Pierce Flusterstorm, Rest in Peace, 2 Vendilion Clicks, 2 Blood Moons, Baneslayer Angel himself, Supreme Ferret, and a Pithing Needle.
Good mixture of cards here. I really like the 2 copies of Blood Moon naturally. 2 copies of Vendilion Click and Rest in Peace are very good at tagging Loam. So those cards will certainly be coming in, and the 1 copy of Pithing Needle can shut down a variety of cards in Andersen's list and is worth 1 slot.
Fall Creature Collection is where we're going now here before game number 2. We've got playmat sleeves and player bundles of some of your game night favorites.
Yeah, you see the fall collection here, the hippo, the otter, the reindeer, and Penguillian Click, all available on playmats, sleeves, and player bundles over at StarCityGames.com/creature collection, or you can head over to our dealer booth at any of our opens or any Grand Prix that we're at.
Just rolls off the tongue so nicely, does Penguillian Click.
It took me a little bit. It was not smooth at first.
So does the name Reid Duke. It's not particularly hard to say, and we have to say it a lot because he doesn't lose very much, does the 26-year-old from Sugarloaf, New York. 5 invitational top 8s with 1 win in Los Angeles back in 2012. 8 Open Series top 8s with 5 victories. So when he makes the elimination rounds, he normally gets it done. A Pro Tour top 8, a Pro Tour journey into Knicks. 15 Grand Prix top 8s with 3 wins on the resume. Worked several years as an assistant to a jeweler. Was a guest host of the 2008 Sugarloaf Awards.
I'm assuming he won every award.
I imagine that's the case. And once beat Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past without dying or using a fairy even once.
That's pretty crazy.
That's hard to do.
Yeah, that's the Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past equivalent of Reid Duke's various Magic accomplishments.
Yes, I agree. No death or fairy. I'm gonna have to talk to him about this.
Yeah.
Maybe I just wasn't very good at the game.
Yeah. I did know that he worked several years as a jeweler's apprentice.
I knew that as well. That's the fun fact that I did know.
And his friend Andrew Boswell works in ceramics. He's a potter.
Yeah. Very good one at that. I believe you've had something made by the boss?
I bought some coffee mugs off of his Etsy website. They're excellent.
Very
Get complimented on them all the time. But a jeweler's apprentice, a potter. I wonder if you live in Sugarloaf, if it just comes with a time machine to the 1840s.
I think
back when those industries were a little bit more popular.
Sugarloaf is actually the city. It's the city in the video game Diablo.
Right.
Like I imagine that Reid's brother Ian is the blacksmith.
Yeah.
And something like that. Yeah. And some other Sugarloaf natives that we don't know. Can't remember the name of that city. I think it's Tristan. I can't remember though. Tristram or something like that.
Don't recall.
It's been such a long time since I played that game.
Yeah. I bet Sugarloaf has a great Renaissance fair.
Oh, definitely.
I would be willing to bet some money on that.
I also just want to Google the Sugarloaf Awards now.
Yeah, me too.
I just want to know more. I'm curious if the cities I live in have awards.
And Best Arms goes to Andrew Boswell for the 12th straight year. Congratulations.
A Mox Diamond and a Schadenport to start here for Chris. He is going to port the planes. We're going to head back his way. Dark Depths the draw. Not too much going on here.
Well, he does have a gamble.
Yeah.
That can get Loam going. The problem is that he has Crozan Grip, and I think he would like to clutch onto that as hard as he possibly can. Gamble exposes that to potentially being the card that's discarded. But I think that Chris's hand he just needs Loam to get something going here. So he may have to gamble.
Aptly named.
You get it now, right? I think you get it now.
Look, is Gamble the best named Magic card of all time? That's a real
really,
question.
It's high on the list. It's a very well named. The name definitely matches the mechanics in a way that very few mana cards do.
Here is Gamble. Is it going to resolve? Reid might just force will this. Yeah, he's not even going to let it resolve.
Well, once Gamble resolves, Loam's coming sooner or later. So might as well nip it in the bud.
Going to port the planes on the upkeep. Reid with another planes. Interesting hand here from Reid. So he's got a couple copies of force will and counterbalances. It's unclear if he has any actually blue mana. What do we have now? Cycle Tranquil Thicket. Draw a card here. Will Chris found an exploration. There's a Dark Depths. 10 counters. Pass the turn back. Upkeep. Tap down a planes. Duke will draw. Entreat the Angels is embarrassing. So we head back Chris's way. Punishing Fire, the draw. Here's Exploration. Curious if Reid has interest in countering this. Not really doing a lot.
I mean, he hasn't shown Loam yet.
Yeah.
I would rather, I think that I would rather force of will Loam once than fight over the exploration at this stage.
Port him again, pass, Reid will draw, Swords to Plowshares. Which actually isn't the worst draw in the world. It does cover him from a 20-20 right now. Depths the draw. There's Maze of Ith. Port you again. Reid, Scalding Tarn. Blue mana is finally here. He'll play that. And now we head back Chris Andersen's way. He'll draw a card. Grove of the Burn Willows. That'll be the land for the turn. That'll turn on Punishing Fire. Pass the turn back.
A bit surprised to still see Maze of Ith here in Andersen's deck post-board.
Yeah, I think maybe he leaves like one. He has 3 in his main deck. I am surprised too.
Well, you got the Glacial Chasm and the Tabernacle. You can take those out pretty easily. But I think he's boarded in probably somewhere between 5 and 7 cards.
Yep. Yeah, it looks like that means he has 2 in after sideboard.
Yeah, minimum.
Here's Brainstorm. I guess it can buy you some time, but there's some real cost having Maze in your deck after sideboard.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, against Reid's deck, it's more poor than usual in the matchup because he is extremely creature light.
Yeah.
Does have a couple clicks in his sideboard, which is, you know, it's okay there, but again, a little surprised to see it here post board.
I was going to say there can be some funky games with Monastery Mentor, but even then, Monastery Mentor goes so wide.
Yeah, it's not a great answer to that card.
Here's a Flooded Strand, there's a top. Reid's working himself out of these mana problems now. And Chris is going to Crossing Grip right away.
With the pace of this game right now, Andersen, I don't believe, can let that card into play.
I don't think so either.
The cost here is that now Blood Moon's a huge problem.
Yep. There's Molten Vortex. We'll see if Reid has any interest in countering this. Like, this card might range as annoying enough that you want to counter it.
Since he can't beat Loam in the long term, he has to cut off some of the cards that make Loam problematic if Andersen happens to draw it.
Chris is going to port here. Might go after an island. We'll see. Nope, that'll be the choice there with the port. Counterbalance the draw. There's a mountain. Draw step here for Andersen. Chalice of the Void. Huh. Is he going to cast this for 2?
Chalice for 2 is good against Chris's deck.
Yeah.
So I think you probably, I understand why you want to name it for 2. You cut off Counterbalance, but that's a little too fancy for me.
Cutting off a Loam and Punishing Fire, I think those are 2 useful tools.
Right.
And one is pretty good.
Well, the problem here is that on Duke's side of the table is if this resolves, it means he can't cast Swords to Plowshares anymore.
Yep.
And then he's at the mercy of Thespian Sage coming off the top of the deck.
Yep. And so he has to counter this too, and remove and counterbalance. So for Chris, you got to be kind of happy with that.
That's a win.
Yep. Port again. Because now Reid's hand's looking pretty empty, where it was looking really full before. So you've gotten some decent draws here, if you're Chris, in the mid game, to force these Force of Wills out of Reid's hand.
Reid can't get to double blue on his main phase right now, which cuts off a couple critical cards. But we know that Reid is just drawing to Blood Moon at a moment's notice.
Well, you wonder why Maze of Ith's still in. This is okay. I mean, it's not great against Entreat, but it's okay.
It's fine to have him play.
Entreat for 2. Pass the turn back over to Andersen. Andersen's drawing. And he picks up a Crop Rotation.
I mean, that's a path to Thespian Stage.
It's a path that I think if I'm Chris, I want to do it on my main phase.
Well, with Reid having double blue, it means that Jace is in the equation. Is the problem.
Well, I want to crop on my main phase.
Oh, sure.
Just to resolve. I don't want a 2020 on my main phase. Just want to crop. Now, I don't know what land I want to sack.
There's also some awkwardness here in that if Andersen doesn't use the Maze of Ith, because then there's a jump blocker on the way back, it sort of signals to Reid that something's amiss.
Sure. Now also, so Chris also didn't port. So now, yeah, there's, this is fascinating. This is really interesting. Because now it's like, okay, why didn't you port? Okay, well, because I want to tap your planes with my port and then crop rotation?
Yep.
But you got to remember, Reid is so smart.
Yes.
You know, Reid is going to be able to see through this, I think.
I think there's a reasonable chance he just doesn't attack with the Angels.
I agree.
Just the lines of play here from Andersen. You're just going to let me go into my main phase with double blue? Something's got to be up. There's just...
Ooh, he did attack with both.
Oh.
So you gotta take this.
Well, I don't think Andersen has enough mana right now to port and crop rotate. A bunch of his lands don't make mana.
Oh, no.
So Reid can send in both. Because he ports, and then he spends Grove to crop rotate for Thespian Sage, and his leftovers are Mox Diamond, Thespian Sage, Maze of Ith, Dark Depths.
Oh, no.
So Andersen kind of just has to let this go and hope that Swords of Plowshare is not in the equation.
There? Sure.
Yeah.
You're right. All right, Reid says that resolves.
No.
Pretty sure he's short.
Yes, I think he's short. I think he has to do this because he's short on mana.
Yep. And we've seen Chris so many times be aggressive with this. Just say I'm going to make a 2020 right now, and there's Swords. Okay. He goes to 32.
Right, but now Andersen, no Maze of Ith in play, no backup plan here.
I would say has to peel Loam like right now.
Yep.
What is this? Port. It's not over, but it's real hard now.
Yeah, the problem was with the line of play that Chris took, he wasn't keeping up appearances of anything else going on. Like, maybe that's a window to stick Merit Lage, but if Reid can't work around it, he has the option of just saying go and not attacking you.
Yep.
You basically have to make a bunch of awkward plays, hoping that Reid messes up, and you're giving a lot of information while you do that, and Reid is just not going to mess that up very often.
Yeah. Reid will draw. Have the Swords for the 2020. I think he might have a backup Swords in his hand now. He's going to come across for 8. Andersen's going to fall down to 24. Curious to see how Reid wants to use his Jace now. Looks like he's going to go Fate Sealing.
I mean, Andersen has no way to shuffle his deck and is drawing very thin right now, so I think Reid can be aggressive in going at the top of his deck. Also means that in the event that Andersen is able to reassemble Merit Lage, Reid can just try to hang back with Jace and Fate Seal him out of the game.
Top card to the bottom. A Plains here for Duke. I believe only one card left in hand here for Reid. One card for Chris, too. Chris's is a Punishing Fire. See where he wants to send Punishing Fire here, or if he wants to send it anywhere at all. He'll tap an island.
I mean, he can do a little bit of work here in suppressing Jace, but he can't Punishing Fire, get it back and recast in one turn, which is what he needs to do to get an Angel off the table.
Yep. So Jace is going to go down to 5, return it, Reid will gain a life.
Yeah, he can do this for a little bit.
Yep.
But until he finds another source of red mana, he can't get an Angel off the table.
It's really on loam now, right?
Yeah.
Exploration doesn't do much. Pass the turn back. It's kind of a holding pattern here for Chris. Reid will draw.
Holding pattern, except he's getting hit for 8.
Yeah, besides that. Yeah. Let's ignore that as he falls down to 16.
Which is conveniently enough a multiple of 8.
It is, yeah. It's almost like you set it up this way.
It's almost.
Well, it's a tie game.
Right.
Look at the life totals. It's a tie game. He's going to brainstorm this time. Change gears a little bit. See what he can find. Swords of Plowshares among those cards. Those Dastardly Miracles players, they always have the swords for the avatar.
Gotta draw something. I mean, Reid wasn't casting very much for a while.
It's very true. Port your island. Draw a card. Besiege you. That's painful right now.
The other thing with Andersen here, he's found a lot of his sideboard cards.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't found loam. That's the whole deck basically. But
Andersen down to 8.
can't complain that your sideboard didn't show up.
No, it showed up. Reid going to target himself. Top card to the bottom. Tap an island. Punishing Fire. Return it. Maybe.
Yeah, it looks like the trigger is on the stack.
Yeah, Reid has this Vendilion click, so.
Sure. Yeah, I think that the odds are too high here. The last card in the hand is nonsense. I guess you can just click for information here, but I'd be surprised if Reid touched anything that was going on in this hand.
Info's always nice. All right, P-Fire down. New card here for Chris. Draw. Anything useful? I think another exploration. He's at least taking a look in the graveyard.
Well, if he's drawn loam and can resolve it, he can get back 2 mazes.
Here's exploration. I think he has drawn loam. And he can always resolve it because of Beseiju.
Yeah. Well, the problem is that he can only get back 2 mazes, and Reid has 3 threats in play. So taking 2 points of damage is not a freebie.
Yep. Well, he's going to take 2 because he really wants to resolve this one.
Yes.
And then maybe he doesn't have to take damage for the next one, but this one seems pretty important to resolve. But as you mentioned, definitely not a freebie. Now he can get back, as you mentioned, double maze and like maybe stage.
Right. It's just some reassembling of the combo plus 2 mazes.
All right.
And it looks like that's what he did.
Hasn't played a land yet, so he's just going to play those 3 lands. Say go. Giving himself a shot. Reid will draw. Here come the beatdowns. You want to make 20-20 right now?
Well, then you're hitting a Jace unsummon. I guess you get a threat off the table, and if
Yeah,
you have two
that's a big
explorations
one,
and a
right?
loam,
You can just keep doing it.
yeah.
And you have a Beseiju. The Beseiju comes at a cost, obviously, but
He can't besage you forever, but he at least has a couple activations left.
see, the thing that Chris kind of wants to do here, and I don't think Reid is going to cooperate, is he really wants this token to get swords
Yes.
because he needs 20 life. That's the big one right now, is he really needs 20 life. All right, looks like Reid is going to cooperate. Okay. Like, if I'm Chris, like I'm a little frustrated that I lose a token, but it's not the end of the world because I really need 20 life to keep loaming.
Yeah, this is not the end of the world for Andersen. There's no lock and play right now, so Reid can keep playing for a little. Excuse me, Andersen can keep playing. Oh, okay. So he's got to unsummon to get the loam out.
He's too smart.
Too cagey.
He's too smart. It's not fair.
Okay.
Bounce has been dealing. Look, if you dredge loam into your draw step, I'm going to take it from your draw step.
And there's no Tranquil Thicket here for Andersen to do any shenanigans.
Not right now.
Or anything in response or...
Well, he says I'll dredge anyway. Gamble's 1. Forest is 2. Gamble is 3.
He kind of needs to do this to just force the hand. He could just draw into a loam from here and be okay. So
Punishing Fire is not bad. There are some good
Yeah.
draws here. What do you find? Didn't get a good look.
I think that's Boil, which is sweet. I mean,
Light him up. I'm not sure if it's good, but
Boyle, he got 2 Maze of Iths in play. He's got some time. Boyle's not bad.
it's uncounterable.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite the right weapon for this battle. But I mean, it's not horrible.
I can dig it.
Yeah.
Bubble them up. Teach them real good. Get those 3 islands out of here.
Back when the color haters were a bit different.
Did he force that?
I think he did, which is not great,
No.
as Beseiju was tapped.
We'll take a look at Beseiju. If a instant or sorcery spell can't be countered,
Oil is an instant.
you see our table spotter explaining what's going on here a little bit, so we'll let you guys know as soon as we
Sure.
know.
The only way that I can see this being a point of confusion is if Andersen has the Riftstone portal in the graveyard
Okay.
and didn't announce that he was taking 2.
Sure.
Because Reid at least looks confident enough in what's happening right now that this wasn't just like he didn't just force a will and forgot about the Beseiju. Something happened here for him to think that this was in the clear.
That would be very un-Reid-like.
Right.
I will say that. It's very rare that we see Reid make a mistake anyway, but to maybe see something like this happen would be unusual.
Yep.
Unless he just wants his hand to be empty.
Or
So.
it's possible if Andersen didn't announce the 2 points of damage that Reid thought maybe something else is going on.
Sure, sure. Well, we're going to find out instead of you guys having to stare there. So we'll let you guys know exactly what's going on with that ruling as soon as we do have it for you. But we're back here in the booth. Center Phillips, Patrick Sullivan Open Series here in New Jersey. A very interesting game.
For people who really enjoy watching Legacy coverage, who really enjoy watching the games, this matchup's got to be near the top of the list.
Yeah.
We've gotten to watch it now a couple times where the game shifts a lot. It feels like both players are capable of just closing the game on someone else, kind of at a moment's notice, which is what we saw happen in the first game, but there's just so much play going on here.
Yep.
The games have been really fascinating to watch this matchup.
It's really back and forth, but as you mentioned, the game can also end immediately. You know, for Miracles, you're forced to have swords. For the land side, you need to be able to deal with counterbalance plus top like right away, or you're in a huge amount of trouble.
Yeah.
So while these players are waiting, we're going to take a look at our Season 4 leaderboard, get you guys updated on that very quickly before we head on down to our feature match area. So you can see exactly where Jonathan Morawski, Chris Andersen, and the rest of the gang do stand. Of course, that's really the big kind of story coming into this weekend in this tournament is the race is very, very close. And so as you see here from Morawski, he's on top of things, but with all these at-large bids that are in play here, it's very close.
No, for Morawski, I think he's in pretty solid position here. There's only so many events left. There's only so many points to go around. So most likely scenario here, I think Morawski, even I think players like Hunter Nance, Gerard Fabiano, they should be safe. But if you go a little bit further down the list, once you're in like the 230, 240 point range, any of these players could make or miss.
I know that you felt kind of when we were halfway through the season, you thought like 260 would have to be the goal.
I was 260, 275. I thought it would be in that ballpark. Unclear if anyone's even going to hit that point total. Wouldn't surprise me, I guess, if Morawski got to that point. I don't think a lot of other players are going to. So my estimate was a bit of an overshoot, but not by a ton. 250 may or may not get it done.
I mean, 250 might be the worst that you can do. We take a look at the second page here, 9, 10, 11, 12, Hawkins, Ross, Mize, Andersen. I mean, Andersen's at 208 right now. He's off to a great start this week, and he's 6-0, though he's down a game, and it's not looking great here for the second game. But, again, it might be like 240 is the min you can have.
Yeah, it's going to be really tight, obviously, and you see how much separates Hawkins from Tom Ross. That's currently the bubble between the two of them.
Yeah.
Now, there's some points from that target IQ that haven't gone in yet, so this leaderboard isn't 100% accurate, but it still shows exactly how close the race is right now. Not a whole lot of points separate the people who are in versus who's out. And there's still an open series event in Denver next week, and then the points from the Las Vegas Invitational will also be applied to this leaderboard.
So it's close.
It's very close.
And I'll be honest, I want to know what's going on with Logan Mize. I know he's not doing nothing down there in Florida.
Right.
He's sneaking around. So we saw him a lot at the back end of Season 4 last year.
Yes.
Wouldn't be surprised to see him in Denver, Las Vegas, all that stuff.
Though I associate him with much more being of the three formats in terms of what he has chosen to play during the IQs and where the lion's share of his results are. Legacy is a distant third for him.
Yeah.
Much more success in Modern, I think, of playing Abzan and with a variety of standard decks.
Yeah,
so
me too.
I think that if he was going to sit out any of these tournaments, not surprising that it was the Legacy Open here in New Jersey.
Yeah, I'm not terribly surprised by that. But again, Logan is a player that we did see at our Players Championship last year, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him there again. And that bubble's real tight.
Yes.
Between Hawkins, Ross, and Mize. And then Andersen is trying to really throw his name into things.
Yes.
He's trying really, really hard at 208. He's behind these guys a pretty healthy chunk, but you know, a top 8 here, if those guys kind of flame out. I know Tom Ross isn't off to a great start this weekend with Infect, oddly enough, even though we saw him win in St. Louis just a handful of weekends ago, actually beat Eric Hawkins in the finals. So those guys are battling out, and Chris is off to this great start here, but Reid is looking to play spoiler, as he's really good at doing that.
Yes, and if you're looking at 250 being about, let's call that the line, maybe it's going to be a little bit more than that, maybe a little bit less. You can see why Chris feels like he's got a spike in open. I mean, we're talking about he has to get a win here because he's at 208 right now, a couple points for the target IQ. 25 points suddenly, and you're in the 235 range, and then between Denver and the Invitational, you're very much live. But in the absence of a huge finish, he's just not going to get it done. A couple top 16s, you know, this weekend and next, that's not going to be nearly enough points to get to the Players' Championship.
Yeah, and then he might spike the Invitational, something like that, which oddly enough, last year we saw someone do that in Dylan Donegan.
Yes.
Who was right in the thick of things, and then he just went and won the Invitational to secure his way there, and also took Steve Mann along with him.
That's the easy way to do it. I mean, it's challenging because you have to win an Invitational, and those tournaments are quite hard, but in terms of simplifying the process of getting the Players' Championship and kind of taking your own destiny by your own hands, winning the Invitational is the easiest way to do it.
Well, I think back to the feature match area we're about to go. We'll see if we can get a ruling for you guys on exactly what is happening, but looks like they're still waiting on the judges. It is, I guess, a little confusing. It seemed pretty straightforward enough, the boil, but I guess, you know, depending on how you announce things with Paseju, because there is life loss there and all that stuff, and depending on how you do announce it with that card.
I'm interested to see what the ruling is, and hopefully we'll get that relatively soon.
Yeah.
Reid's not really the type of player to just throw a force of will into the face of a spell that's been cast through a Paseju and go, oh, whoops, I forgot the Paseju was there or what it did.
Sure.
That's not really in his range, so I assume something in the communication of what happened is causing this confusion, because Reid made the play pretty assertively and then was clearly communicating something to the judge when that initially happened. So something happened there. Hopefully we'll find out soon. Yeah,
that's the plan. As far as this match is concerned, Miracles versus Lands, which to me at least, you know, one of the things that happened with lands, it's really on an uptick now. Jarvis Yu won that Grand Prix. We've seen it quite a bit on the Open Series from a handful of different players. Daryl Ayers does jump to mind. But what we've really seen with this particular deck is, you know, the thing that was kind of pushing it out of the format was it's expensive. And it hasn't really changed. Tabernacle, excuse me, a very expensive card. But also when you see that a deck is expensive like lands, it's like, well, I can't really justify making my move on getting the deck because like it needs to put up some results.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, if you're an expensive deck that puts up results, then I'm interested. But if you're an expensive deck that like looks pretty cool on paper, but it's unclear if the deck is actually good, then you know I'll stay away from it. And you know, you're David Longs of the world, you're Chris Andersen, you guys keep doing your thing. Well, now we've seen that lands is legit.
Yep.
And so now people are moving in, and I think this matchup here between Miracle versus Lands, this is not the last time we're going to see this.
No, I don't think so either. Part of the issue with expensive decks too is there's a problem with exclusivity when the expensive cards really don't go into that many decks. Like if you want to build Reanimator, for example, what are the expensive cards? Well, the Underground Seas and the Force of Wills and some of the other lands are pretty pricey, right?
Yep.
Well, let's say I don't want to play Reanimator anymore. Well, I can just port those over to Sultai Delver or Storm. It's not like it's a dead end for a lot of the expensive cards in this deck. Here you've got your 1 copy of Tabernacle. That doesn't go into a lot of other decks. You've got your 4 copies of Rashad and Port. Those are also quite expensive. They go into Death and Taxes, a couple other fringe strategies, but they're sort of hard to port over. So decks like this have a habit of getting underrepresented because the expensive pieces are not easy to port over to other decks in the event you don't want to play the deck anymore. With that said, the results of the deck now, capped off by a Grand Prix win a couple weeks ago in the hands of Jarvis Yu, I think we're going to see more people making the investment.
All right. Well, back to the match we go. It looks like Reid's Islands are going away. And it looks like they just rewound the game state. And that's pretty much it. So maybe a little bit of miscommunication. It's very clear now. Boyle has resolved. Chris took some damage. He's going to activate these mazes. Looks like we're good to go.
It's a source of confusion if Andersen didn't say pay 2 life, because that's part of the cost of activating Beseiju.
And it looks like Reid didn't have to lose the cards.
Right.
Yeah.
So it looks like a miscommunication there.
He is activating Jace. So now we update the game for you here. Andersen's at 18. Reid Duke's at 18. The time is accurate here. About 7 minutes, 30 seconds ago. It is game number 2, by the way. And Chris looking to maybe play towards a draw. Doesn't want to pick up a loss. He'll draw a card for the turn. And he'll play a Thespian stage. Though I'm searching for a Dark Depths, and I don't see one just yet.
No. Right now, Andersen's got not a whole lot going on here, but a lot of time.
A couple of port activations will tap some white mana. Here come the beatdowns. There's the mazes. Takes 3 from the Vendilion Click.
Somewhat surprising here to see Andersen not tap the red, because what's the utility of all the white mana there? It's unclear. I guess Council's Judgment. Reid's probably not going to cast that in one of your explorations. But if you let Reid go to the main phase with red mana, that could just be a Blood Moon.
And then that's it.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So I think that Andersen may not have Blood Moon on the radar right now, because porting the second planes, how much that matters is dubious to me, and Blood Moon might end the game on the spot.
Chris looks like he's just going to pass. Here come the beatdowns. Maze again. He'll take 3, fall down to 12. Jace is up to 10. That card's going to stay on top, past the turn back. Thespian stage is going to copy Mazavith. Sure. Buy him some more time. Wasteland's the draw.
Well, he's only got so much time because of Jace.
Yeah.
He does have the 3 creatures locked out. That's something, but...
Port some white mana. Draw a card. Scalding Tarn. Reid's found blue mana again. Jace going up. Take a look.
Not good news for Chris.
If that's staying on top, I'm not happy. Dark Depths the draw. Huh. The ultimate on Jace is 12.
Well, I mean, I think Reid might be just be saying, okay, you get that. I'm going to untap ultimate and chump block a bunch of times.
Okay, okay.
Because I think Duke knows Andersen Reid can probably guess here that Andersen has very little going on.
Yeah, he's got 3 cards in hand. That'll become his deck.
Yeah.
So, yep, cash it in. Most players concede in the face of a Jace Ultimate. Let's play it out.
Andersen's got a board. I mean,
yeah, it does.
whatever.
Reid, the consummate professional, he'll cut the deck.
Yeah.
All 3 cards of it. Sacrifice Scalding Tarn. Get an island. Yep, and Chris knows that he can just chump block 3 times.
Yep.
That's exactly what'll happen. He'll draw a card, attack, block. That'll happen a couple of times, and then Chris gets decked. Reid Duke gonna win this match over Chris Andersen. 2-0. Miracles moving on to 7-0, giving Andersen his first loss. And for Reid, it's just another win here with a deck that he is all too familiar with.